Thank you. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Varsity, followed by the Associate Minister for Accountability, Transparency and Transformation.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I, too, am pleased to speak to Bill 208, the Seniors Advocate Act. The idea of creating an independent advocate is actually really compelling. And I must tell the member from Innisfail Sylvan Lake that I gave this proposal an awful lot of consideration. I think it's really good for us all to reflect on how we do what we do in government. And so asking for all of us to think more about this, an issue that comes into every single one of our offices, and my office in particular in Calgary-Varsity sees a lot of questions about seniors, full spectrum of issues, to the point that we have decided in our office, in our constituency of Calgary-Varsity, that this is one of the top 5 challenges that we want to tackle as a constituency. And so we work with partners and communities and try to identify how we can respond to these issues. So the question of creating an independent body merits consideration. In addition to the comments shared by lots of other MLAs today in this legislature, I just want to pull forward some of the thinking that we've and build on some of the thinking that we've seen. Mentioned already is an aging population policy framework. Government of Alberta went out to Albertans in a very significant way as recently as 2008 and obviously since, and asked what are the key issues with seniors that we want to be looking after, and making sure that we work on, as the Government of Alberta, engage other governments, engage families, engage municipalities, and engage the not-for-profit sector and communities. And the 3 priorities that they set out, and I think they actually still are very powerful priorities, is to make sure that we have consistent province-wide policy directions about seniors and an aging population. And I come from the city of Calgary, where the needs probably are very different than some of my colleagues who live in more remote jurisdictions. But the idea of having consistency and province-wide policy directions and making sure that we have the resources available to make sure we can deliver on these policies in an efficient way. I think that is the role of government, to lead. And the idea of consolidating a seniors advocate within the Health Advocate's Office seems to be consistent with that vision. The second role that the framework advanced and said was an absolute imperative was for government to create the conditions for collaboration. So as I mentioned, among citizens, among families, communities and governments. No one group can do this, resolve this issue on their own. I'm a big fan of that, and I see that in action in my constituency all the time. We have amazing community associations, active aging coalitions that bring together seniors and citizens, and they work with government. And when there is an issue or an opportunity, there is collaboration. The third theme of the framework was to make sure that supports and services to Alberta's seniors are provided. And some of these programs are provided by the government directly, and some are provided through community partners on behalf of government. Notwithstanding, the government's responsible for the effectiveness and the efficiency of these programs, and we must be. It's also our responsibility to make sure that we have standards and mechanisms in place to protect seniors in a variety of circumstances. And one of the things I've observed in our government, and that I'm pleased by, is the ability of ministries to increasingly have the agility to work across ministries. The Ministry of Health works with health services, works with justice, works with finance, works with municipalities, works with Aboriginal relations, because most of these issues faced by seniors, the ones that we can't get to really quickly, are complex, and they need a multidisciplinary approach. That kind of collaboration, again, with communities and with families, is hard to do sometimes, but it's absolutely essential. other things I want to flag from the framework that I see in my office all the time is financial resources. A lot of people come into our office and say they're concerned about whether or not they will have adequate access to financial resources in their senior years. And I understand why people would have that concern. My own grandparents had that concern. So as government, in particular the Associate Minister of Seniors, we're developing and tailoring programs that look at these issues, making sure that families of seniors and the seniors themselves have an informed understanding of issues that affect their future financial needs when they become seniors and as they are seniors. We've also developed affordable housing and supportive living units, especially in remote and rural areas through the ASLI program. There are 982 new affordable supportive living spaces receiving over $72 million of funding from the Alberta government. I've had lots of questions about how do we get more seniors buildings in the constituency where I live, which is sort of almost now an inner city constituency in the city of Calgary. And I know my colleague in Calgary, Hawkwood, is asking the same questions. We truly do want to create choices for seniors so that they can continue to live in the communities where they grew up and raised their families. I want to talk a little bit about continuing care services and support for seniors who are able to live independently, and also about increasing demands for continuing care services. These questions need to be included in our debates of Bill 208, and I welcome that debate. Government of Alberta has been working on, with communities, coordinated access policies to make sure that we can reduce the barriers for seniors who want to live in community. We've got pilot projects operating to support seniors' independence, Emergency to Home Pilot Project and Neighbours Helping Neighbours Initiative. And of course, seniors' independence means we cannot ignore the prevention of elder abuse and neglect. Yes, and sadly, there is a need for us to raise awareness of elder abuse and to adequately respond to this horror. Communities and governments and citizens are coming together to tackle this challenge, and we need to keep this issue in our mind, at the very fore of our mind. I just want to conclude by saying that I was very tempted to support this. The idea of having an independent seniors advocate is compelling. But I truly believe that looking after seniors and making sure that we respond to their needs is a first priority for this government. And as a member of this government, I will commit to doing everything possible to make sure that our government uses its resources to support seniors, to listen to their needs, to respond to their needs. And I sincerely believe that the best place to do that is from within government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.